It's time in the CollectionDX review. This time I'm looking at the Brave Gokin VV-54A Calibur, which hails from the anime series Special Armed Battalion Dorvack. This is a release by CM's Corporation, and this is basically a variant of their Brave Gokin Combat Calibur or Mugen Calibur. Some people recognize that name as being the toy that was repurposed as Roadbuster from Transformers. And in the series, this guy is basically the mass-produced version of the Mugen Calibur, kind of the Jim to the Gundam, a comparison which isn't hurt by the fact that the main pilot, Masaru Mugen, is voiced by Toru Furuya, aka Amuro Ray. Anyway, this guy is a big old chunky Brave Gokin. Major parts of metal are his thighs and the wheel assembly on his back. By default, this guy comes with all of his wheel covers already installed, and these just kind of slide in and off of the axle pretty easily. Detail-wise, it's pretty good looking. It's a pretty good likeness to the line art. Not quite as dynamic as the robot would appear in the show. And as I said, it's under 7 inches tall, and here's a nice comparison with a Masterpiece Transformer, so you can kind of see the general size there. And also, for some old school toy fans, here he is with converter's wheels. So this was actually a kind of gray market repaint of the small transforming Mugen Calibur. You can see this guy has the different head than this guy. This guy has a slightly more grunty mass production style head, and this guy's got the more heroic looking head with tiny little fins on it there. And before I get into the articulation, I just want to show you the one main gimmick of the robot mode, and that's you can lift this up and pull up this panel, and there is in fact Masaru Mugen sitting inside the cockpit. It's kind of a tight fit for him, unfortunately, and the whole idea is that you can actually leave him in there as you're transforming it back and forth from Jeep mode. Alright, so let's take a look at articulation. So with a lot of the Brave Gokin figures, they're designed a lot like an 80s toy, not unlike the old high complete models from Bandai, just with a much more accurate overall sculpt and look. So with the articulation, you've got some nice ratcheted elbows, which unfortunately tend to bang into this thing in the back and also knock off the wheel covers, which I'm just going to take those off. I like this guy going commando anyway with uncovered wheels. And so you've got a nice outward motion here, fully rotating elbow joint, a nice deep bend right there. The hands and the wrist, again, they're a lot like Bandai High Complete models. It's basically got a ball jointed wrist, and the fingers are on a hinge, with the index finger being separate from the rest of them. The head is pretty basic. It's just a kind of a tight ball joint. You can look up and down a little bit. And below the waist, you're kind of stuck. At least it's kind of limited, I should say. There is a waist joint here, and it can rotate full 360, but it just sort of bangs into the tops of the thighs. And you're going to notice that the thighs, they do plug into the groin, but they're loose enough so that you can get a nice kind of A stance. Now, with the thighs, the whole thing is that if you want to actually get a lot more articulation, because like this, you can basically just click them one forward and maybe one back. If you need more articulation, you just kind of have to pull this out and then just sort of like balance this here. It doesn't really stay in place, you just sort of rest it on there and fiddle around with the knees, which are pretty good. They can bend about like 80 degrees, not quite the full 90, and there is a very free moving thigh swivel just kind of right above the knee joint. And the feet, they do have kind of a little ball joint here, which is really just kind of for stabilizing him doing other poses. So again, if you really want to do like more with this guy, it's really up to you to kind of pose and fiddle and try to balance him. But overall, this guy's more for like you want him to be in a nice neutral stance like that. So yeah, kind of disappointing in that regard. I mean, when I reviewed the original version of this, or not the original, the Miyazawa Moke version years ago, that was kind of my same complaint, and well, yeah, hasn't really changed that much in 5 years. So let's take a look at accessories, because this guy comes with a bunch of them. Alright, so let's talk equipment. This is where I just start piling things onto this toy. In a manner not unlike Fens Project's Revolver Core, Recoiler, and Rift Shot. The latter of two, which are very clearly based off of this. I'm sorry, Transformers fans, it's not Rack and Ruin, it's Dorvack. Straight up Dorvack. So anyway, we're going to spin this guy around, and we're going to deal with his vehicle mode gun. So this is pretty basic, you know, it's a thing that plugs into the back right up here. And actually I'm going to pop off this part because I need it for later. And in the meantime, I'm going to just stick on his backpack. It's basically a rocket pack, and it has the amazing name of Jumping Booster Unit. This thing is just kind of sticks in there with a couple of pegs that line up with parts in the wheel wells on his back, and now he's ready to fly around and do stuff. And with the jump pack, there's actually one more little piece that goes on there. It's this tiny little antenna which just inserts into the back. It's actually keyed to go in only one way. Now this thing is made out of hard plastic, so kind of be careful around it because it can very easily snap and break. And that's true of a lot of the accessories where you have like little tiny spots like this here. Again, it's all hard plastic, it's a bit more model-like. So to give them a little more weaponry, you can pop off this panel that's on one of the wheel covers, and you've got a rocket launcher. Basic idea, there's a C-clip that goes onto a little thing in the back here. It's going to go on with a nice loud snap, so that's not going anywhere. Alright then. For handheld weapons, I'm going to take this thing, part of the vehicle mode gun, and you've got this folded up rifle here. Now this, if you want, you can store it on his leg. There's just a couple of pegs that go right in here. So, pretty basic idea. So what you do with this rifle is you just extend the stock in the back and fold this part here, and just watch as that falls off if he's trying to flip it around. But anyway, need to be off so I can just stick the main chamber and barrel of the gun on there, and here you are. It's basically a giant robot-sized AR-15. And with this guy, he can hold the guns pretty well, but I do feel like this again is more like an 80s toy where they just had a stock hand and tried to fit it onto different guns. So you can sort of like force the hand in there and get the trigger finger in there. And he does a decent job of holding this gun. So that's one handheld weapon. And the weapon that is kind of unique to this version of the toy is this big old bazooka, which was their main weapon in the show. And like the rifle, it does have a pair of pegs, so you can stick it onto his leg here. You're actually using the bottom set of pegs, or holes I should say, here. There's actually two sets, because one is for the grenade rack, which was seen on this guy in the show, but they decided to omit the grenade rack in favor of giving you this. So it's like, yeah, if you want to actually have the full like show look, you definitely need to have like two versions of the Calibur toy. So yeah, it actually holds the bazooka a bit better than the rifle, and it's a pretty decent looking weapon. Anyway, so the last weapon is the twin barrel 100mm Mac 11, as the box calls it. So it's this big old double barreled machine gun thingy, and the only real accessory to it is you have this little peg on the bottom which can come off, but that's really just because of aesthetic purposes, because normally you want that on there so you can mount it to the back in vehicle mode. So this actually doesn't have a handle. Instead there is in fact a hand just molded in there that can move a little bit and has a ball joint on the end of it. So you just pop off the wrist, and then stick this thing on there. Just kind of have to be careful with the backs of the hands there, that kind of moving gauntlet thing. So just sort of like thread it all in place, because you have moving stuff trying to work together, and here you go. Now he's got this big old gun stuck in his hand. And unfortunately the ball joint's a little loose on mine, so I can kind of only like have him hold it like this, or if he wants he can like bring his hand forward and try to stabilize it. But yeah, anyway, this guy is very well equipped. Basically a little one-man army robot. Pretty cool. Lots of good stuff in the box. And we're going to take a little look at a couple of the buddies that he comes with. So one cool thing about Dorvack was, in addition to the big variable machines, they also had little power armors for soldiers to wear. And CM's Corporation included power armors with all versions of the Mugen Calibur, with the regular green Calibur actually coming with two different kinds. Rather than the Hulk and Nove, you got a Guardian and Tinkerbell. I'm just gonna pop this guy over here for a sec and focus on the figures. Now, fans of like old school anime model kits may remember these guys were a lot more prominent in the Dorvack kit line. And you know, it's kind of nice to see a pair of them get brought up again in the toys. I think they actually sold these in blind boxes as well. So the Guardian is this guy. He's got a big old gun for an arm, and you can see they've got moving arms, just kind of little ball joints there, and this one has a moving wrist joint so that he can kind of put two hands on his gun and kind of stabilize it. And for whatever reason, mine are kind of sticky. It's unpleasant to touch. They're just weirdly sticky. I don't know why. I've heard the other ones aren't sticky, so I don't get that. And also, you're supposed to be able to like pop off his arm and replace it with this big triple blaster, but when I did that, the thing just kind of came off there. The little hard plastic peg that goes into the soft PVC, yeah, it's just kind of coming out by itself. And you know, they're sticky, so I don't feel like dealing with that. But anyway, let's talk about my favorite armor from the show, the Tinkerbell. It's probably supposed to be Tinkerbell, but you know, Romanization. So this guy was funny because he's loaded with missiles, and they'd walk out standing in the middle of one of their squads, and they'd get shot, and then all their missiles would spew everywhere and kill their allies. So that was just kind of hilarious. And in addition to his backpack missiles, he has like this little hand that comes with an extra set of missile launchers, because you know, he needs to have more to be a danger to himself and others. And you can actually pop this thing off, and it actually has a extra kind of dustbuster blaster thingy, which was seen on the other variant of the Tinkle Sam. But yeah, it's kind of nice to get a couple options there. But again, these things are just sticky. They're just, ugh, unpleasant. So yeah, that is the two little power suit guys. Power armor, powered suit, bio armor, whatever they call it in the show. Anyway, so now let's take a look at the transformation of the Calibur. And now it's time to look at the main gimmick, which is the transformation from robot mode to Jeep mode. And anyone out there who's ever handled the vintage moving Calibur toy will notice that the Brave Gokin is in fact quite similar. It's a real testament to its design that it's remained relatively unchanged for about 30 years now. So starting off, what we do is collapse the legs like that, and then we take the feet and we just kind of slide them in on this little track here. And they can go in a lot further than this, but I'm just going to leave them up like that because that's how they show it in the instructions. So we come up to the back and move the wheel assembly up, and we start to flip this thing up as well. And also on the back we can move this panel out of the way and start to move Masato Mugen out into the driver's position. So this is going to come up, that's just the windshield there, and this all moves as well. And unfortunately getting Masato to cooperate as you're transforming it can be a little difficult because you sort of have to move, I don't know if you can see this, but there's the steering wheel that moves up with all this, and you just kind of have to get it so that he's moving up and bring the steering wheel with him. Okay. So that's kind of in position. You can close this back up at the bottom, move this into the up position, and you need to move the shoulders down. This is a hard step to miss because actually he's packaged with them down like that, but they're actually supposed to be up like this for robot mode and then down for the Jeep mode. So you do that on both sides, and be careful not to whack the windshield in the back there. And then you just bring this whole thing up, and this should give you enough. Actually, I'm forgetting something. You have to bring these out, both of these out. You have to put these in between first, and then you can actually bring this all up so it snaps in place. So there's actually just enough of this shoulder assembly here that will hit into the back of this thing here. And so now you just rotate these all the way so that they're parallel with the wheels on the bottom. Just kind of flip this thing down in the back here. And to secure everything for Jeep mode, you actually have to put this little tab that's on the bottom of the heel around this thing here, just kind of the interior of the fender. And it can scratch the paint, so be careful there. Maybe you want to like put some sort of protective coating here between this part. But yeah, just be advised that I think the main reason why they package these things in robot mode was to try to avoid this issue, avoid kind of making this issue seem like it was going to happen no matter what. So yeah, only problem here is that you kind of have to get creative with how you do the toe as you're just trying to get the whole thing into position there. Alright, so that's kind of in place, and again, kind of just carefully stick it in there, and watch you scratch more with the paint. So anyway, that is the Mugen Calibur in Jeep mode. It's got kind of nice rubberized tires, rolls pretty well, and it feels like a tiny die-cast brick like this. So yeah, looks pretty cool. I mean, it's just a big blocky Jeep thing that only one person can drive. But yeah, still pretty cool. So now let's look at what you can do with the Jeep mode, and that's pile all the accessories back onto it. Alright, now it's time to make the Calibur look like a real roadbuster. So I'm going to start off and just pop on the vehicle mode gun in the back here. And you can add this, the folded up rifle on the side here. You can almost take everything with it as far as like storing all the accessories. And the bazooka, it will peg right into this leg, and it's kind of a tight fit, unfortunately. Yeah, just kind of working in there. And it kind of drags on the bottom, and you cannot use the upper set of holes because that's for the grenade rack, and they're not far enough apart anyway. And if you want, you can stick the giant Mac 11 on top there. And so, you know, you've got a ton of weapons on a little Jeep, and this thing keeps trying to pop off. And you have to remove this, unfortunately, if you want to stick the backpack on. Because the backpack, it just kind of slots over the vehicle mode gun and stores in place. And you can stick the antenna back on there for authenticity. Oh, and I forgot to mention, as this thing falls up, I forgot to mention that little handles on the backpack actually do move. I remember on my Miyazawa Moke version, one of the handles was kind of paint glued in place, so I had to fix it when it broke off in a annoying way. So yeah, anyway, that's me putting all of the guns and stuff on the thing. Unfortunately, you cannot like combine the wheel covers like they would show in the old model kits. You basically like put them in as one unit and stick them on the side here of the backpack. But yeah, cannot do that here on this toy. That's the one major omission. Alright, so I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of buyer's tips for this toy because it's kind of old at this point. So when buying this toy in the aftermarket, be aware that this figure is from 2009 and has been long since discontinued, And also, Sam's Corporation went out of business, so there's no chance of this being reissued anytime soon, unless somebody else picks it up. I mean, stranger things have happened. Its MSRP was about 19,800 yen, which, depending on the exchange rate, works out to around 200 American dollars. With the death of Sam's Corporation and the fact that this wasn't really a popular toy to begin with, you tend to see them getting cleared out for half of that, so around $100. I actually got mine for about $50 because the box was damaged, and so thank you, anal retentive Japanese collectors market. Now, speaking of the box, when you're buying one of these from overseas, be aware that the box is flipping gigantic. And yeah, so this box, I'm just going to pick this up real quick, is huge. Absolutely huge. Even if you buy this thing, they actually use the exact same box for all 4 versions, even the one with the armor. This is the Combat Calibur. Even if you buy that version with the armor, it still feels like this box is way too big. But anyway, the boxes are all identical, and they just use what is a giant ass sticker to cover up the Combat and Combat Calibur to say that this is the mass-produced green version, the 21X number of Brave Gokin. And this sticker here just tells you that you're getting this guy in the box, and he doesn't come with a bunch of things like the blaster gun or the high laminate armor, which is that thing. All the armor bits for the moving caliber. But yeah, anyway, so I don't think my assessment of this toy has changed much in 5 years. It's decent, it's fun, it's a pretty good toy, but it's, again, kind of limited by the whole bad articulation below the waist. But it's heavy, it's a great display piece, it looks good. I think it's really more for Dorvack fans, and I think that's really what changed for me, is that I'm now much more of a Dorvack fan after having watched the show in its entirety in raw Japanese, but I wasn't going to watch it in Spanish or Portuguese, but it is out there in those languages. So anyway, this has been Ed of CollectionDX.com, giving some love to kind of an obscure and forgotten piece. So please check out the text review where you can see a lot more photos. And as always, check back at CollectionDX.com for more cool reviews.